International rivalries are all the rage at the moment. Russia and Ukraine are still at it, Brexit is a rising rival to NATO, Scotland is still brutally repressing its own sense of self-respect, and I'm not even going to comment on occupied Jerusalem or the other occupied Jerusalem. The point is that the world is currently a very tense place, with all of the nuclear armed factions that hate each other starting to get ideas. But fortunately, there might be another way. While one very rabid pair of rivals hasn't exactly buried the hatchet, they do seem to have sort of figured it out by getting a little bit of that hatred out of their systems with a show of military force that doesn't involve any bloodshed. However, when the two rival nations have a severe flair for the dramatic, military confrontations tend to get a little bit West Side Story. This is just something that I have been obsessed with ever since I found out it existed. And it's just one of the funniest things that I've ever seen. This video is a lot more for me than it is for you. The Atari Wagga border ceremony. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. As you all know, I'm a great big fan of freedom of speech. So much so that I am very obnoxious about using it on Twitter. But if you've been trying to follow what's been going on over the last few years, good luck, because the man is constantly burying anything that actually matters under a flood of nonsense and partisan claptrap in a massive astroturfing campaign. Ever played Metal Gear Solid 2? Yeah, they're doing that. I do my best to counteract it on the second channel, but sadly, Balatro won't play itself. So, I'm always 2 weeks behind the curve on any important stories, but fortunately, there's a better way to cut through the noise and see what they're trying to hide without getting your best mate's little sister killed. Ground News. Since owning the libs is my job, Ground News is not in the business of telling you what to think. Instead, their small, independent team cuts through the noise and presents you the news without spin, showing every perspective that is being reported from, every financial and political incentive to do so, and who's ignoring or actually reporting on the facts. Except for your Uncle Barry. Even they don't know what he's on about. So instead of sealing you in a comforting little hug box, Ground News just lays out all of the information you need and lets you come to your own conclusions. Ground News' story analysis feature makes this even easier. Not only do they provide a summary based on every article about the subject, but they also make it easy to compare and contrast coverage by different outlets. And they even show where both sides agree, on the rare occasion that that's actually possible. For example, take the fact that Meta is ending its fact-checking efforts, which is rustling a few jimmies at the moment. Obviously, the right is taking a victory lap because of the step forward for freedom of speech and increasing shift away from platforms censoring content. However, the left is taking a bit more of an alarmist tone, saying that this is an attack on the truth and that misinformation will now spread unchecked. But Ground News makes sure to cover both angles, and its comprehensive analysis will help to make sense of both the issue and its implications now that Trump is back, all while giving you the room to form your own opinion. So, for a limited time, you can go to ground.news/CD or scan the QR code on the screen to save 40% on Ground News' Unlimited Access Vantage plan and get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You can even gift it to someone else if you want to have more informed conversations or you're just really tired of Uncle Barry's schizo ramblings. In the summer of 1947, Britain left India, and the country was partitioned between India and Pakistan because ethnic borders are important and Muslims and Hindus just don't get along. Now that's fine because they had the chance to just fuck off to their own sides of the border and never have to put up with each other ever again. But now they immediately started murdering each other, which I just never understood. And apparently that was our fault. All we did was draw a border, we didn't tell them to start fucking killing each other, but anyway, you get the point. The carnage left hundreds of thousands dead, and as a result, to this day, India and Pakistan, very famously, don't like each other very much. And of course, no pair of rowdy and aggressive neighbours are complete without a very tense border separating them. And the only official road crossing along the Punjab border between the rambunctious Rajis lies between the towns of Atari on the Indian side and Wagah in Pakistan. And slightly further afield, this road leads to the cities of Amritsar and Lahore in India and Pakistan respectively, which are situated just 50 kilometres apart. In the aftermath of the partition, the border crossing was established in October of 1947. And is patrolled to this very day by the Indian Border Security Force and the Pakistani Rangers. While being a very important trade route between the two countries, because no matter how badly tensions escalate, the merchants always win, there really wasn't much to the border crossing at first. Just a road with a flag that the guards raised and lowered to the beat of drums. And while that little ritual has certainly expanded since then, the original flagstaff is still there, bearing a commemorative plaque that reads, "Foundation stone of this flagstaff was laid by Brigadier Mohinder Singh Chopra on 11th October 1947. Today, there is still the normal flag raising ceremony in the morning, but the flag lowering ceremony, well, that has changed somewhat over the years since it started properly in 1959. Apparently, one side wanted to lower their flag cooler and better than the other side, I guess. We don't really know how or why this started, but the flag ceremony gradually got increasingly jingoistic and complex as the Indians and Pakistanis sought to one-up each other, both in terms of intimidation and looking impressive. Basically, if one side added anything to their flag ceremony, the other side would add something bigger. So the other side, in retaliation, would add something even bigger to their flag ceremony, and so on for decades, until a simple flag lowering ceremony became this completely blown out, way over the top, absolute farce. And if you've ever even seen a second of Telugu cinema, you will not be surprised that these people are so extra that this basic fucking ceremony essentially became a fucking parade. This has gotten so mental, so over the fucking top, that this flag lowering ceremony at a contentious border has a whole fucking pre-show. There's a pre-show where you can sit there and buy snacks and listen to music, and there's lots of singing and dancing as everybody gets ready to watch a bunch of guys lower a fucking flag. The whole thing is played out with such dedication to being nemesis that it's become this weird, begrudging show of respect. When tensions are low, they even exchange sweets on Eid, Diwali, and Independence Day. But on other days...
You're fucking paranoid, You are fucking, you bloody, you bloody, bastard bitch, fuck you, bloody, fuck you, bloody.
Yeah, not so much. Now, instead of me just simply describing the main event to you, let's just watch it together, and I'll give you a little bit of commentary where I feel it's appropriate. Now, we're not going to watch the entire 45 minutes, yeah, by the way, it's 5 minutes long. It's a flag lowering ceremony, but both sides have added so much stuff to it that it's now 45 fucking minutes long, right? But we're not going to watch all of the peacocking leading up to the closing of the gates and the lowering of the flags. But let's take a look at just enough of this display of carefully choreographed contempt.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
They're big fucking fans on their heads. And is that Steve Carell? That looks like Indian Steve Carell.
I think that's Pakistani.
Ah, same thing.
Bro,
Well, that's why we have this whole border.
Yeah.
bro, if they like bend over and whip their hair back and forth, they could blow the Indians away.
It's called the Willow Smith Gambit.
Well,
I didn't know women were allowed on this side.
look at this.
Wait.
Good leg mobility, I will say.
They're prancing around like Teletubbies. Like, that's what it looked like.
Fucking Oompa Loompas.
We have superior hip flexor.
Hip flexor.
Sword, yes, sword.
Ooh, army. Ooh. Army.
This is such high caste behaviour.
Absolute Brahmin pilled.
I mean,
They look a bit of pose like the Ginyu Force. Like, honestly, that's Ginyu Force behaviour.
Yeah, it's the Power Ranger flags.
Yeah, so when are they forming a Megazord?
I mean, judging by the theatre kid behaviour,
Oh, that was a
clearly
strong
implemented
handshake.
Don't ask, don't tell.
That was a mighty hand. It's like they're prancing around like they're drunk.
Army.
It looks like they're going to challenge her to a dance battle.
Well, that guy's a genetic freak, and he is not normal.
Yeah. That guy's ready to face down all of Pakistan.
Pakistani super soldier, sir.
I'm sorry, that looks like Monty Python Life of Brian. Like,
The comically large flag in the background, just to make sure.
the size of that, just a great big fuck you, we're better.
Our flag.
They're,
We take our flag quicker.
they're touching tips.
The Indian army reporting for duty.
Look at that, that's a joke. Is that women at the front? Disgusting.
Yeah, the Indians ruined it first.
Our flag is bigger, Pakistan.
It's just so over the body top.
They still love the redcoats.
These two.
They're trying so hard to be ours.
Are they throwing the rifles to each other?
That's a Kaylee.
Oh my god, that is a Kaylee.
This is a power move.
They're not even. Well, let's be careful about moving in that formation.
Yeah, I know.
Especially with these colours on.
Brother.
Oh, fancy.
At the ready, wank.
This is Girl Scouts.
That's crazy how
Man.
much combat experience they have. 0? That's crazy. Shooting children in Kashmir? Fuck yeah.
Both militaries select the tallest, biggest guys that they can find to patrol this border, purely for the purpose of height-mogging the other side. They're all over 6 feet tall and have thick, fancy facial hair. Only the most prime specimens of elite human capital would do, and clearly India and Pakistan are both vectors of peak Giga Chad genes. Just don't ask who their great-granddads were. But hey, look at them with their staring down and their flexing and mustache twirling and goose-stepping and stomping. You can see why this spectacle is such a big deal that crowds turn out in droves to watch this like it's cricket, cheering on their side and jeering at the other, shouting things like Hindustan Zindabad or Pakistan Zindabad, which means long live India or Pakistan, and Jai Hind or Pakistan Zindabad again, which means victory to India or Pakistan. Oh, and of course there are also a bunch of white liberal women travel bloggers cheering for peace, because yes, of course darling, you and your stupid gay little TikTok account are going to solve a decades-long national conflict between two nations that are famous for fucking hating each other. While the experience is largely similar for spectators on both sides of the gate, I will give a quick summary of the experience from the Indian side. The whole thing is free to watch, though it's wise to book seating in advance because it's first come first served. But that doesn't mean that there isn't plenty of opportunity to be partied with your hard-earned money, because there are plenty of vendors hawking patriotic tat. If you've been to London, you'll know the types. And while the ceremony is a year-round daily affair, yeah, they run this every single fucking day, the best time for tourists to go is between October and March, because while the Indian winter is still fucking hot, it's a lot better than absolutely melting in the Indian summer. Also, at that time of year, it starts an hour earlier at 4:30. Naturally, security is pretty tight because at the end of the day, this is an actual border checkpoint. And there are separate security queues for men and women, with a VIP queue for foreigners of both sexes. The eat, pray lovers of the world also get their own section of the stands closest to the gates. However, seating on the Pakistani side is completely segregated by sex because Muhammad, praise be upon him, was very adamant about the dangers of spreading cooties. Despite the pomp and circumstance of the ceremony, this is still a real enforced border, so anyone wanting to cross to the other side still needs the proper visas and all that. The rules for watching the ceremony are mostly common sense TSA tier stuff that most venues have these days. Things like no bags, no outside food and drinks, no combustibles, no sharp objects, that sort of thing. But of course, no security is completely airtight, and such a contentious border is bound to have a few gamer moments from time to time. For example, in November of 2014, the ceremony was cancelled for a few days after a suicide bomber left over 50 people dead and 200 people injured after detonating his vest near one of the exits 600 metres away from the border after the ceremony. A number of groups claimed responsibility, most notably the Pakistani Taliban and Dankula, a group affiliated with the heroes who liberated Syria from Assad, Al-Qaeda. Redemption arcs are fucking weird, aren't they? Even when nothing happens at the border per se, periods of heightened tension between the two countries in the wake of tit-for-tat strikes and skirmishes also tend to get the ceremony cancelled for a day or so. In 2016, the ceremony continued as normal, but the general public were turned away on the Indian side from late September to early October, just in case tensions boiled over. And there was no exchange of sweets that year. Another cancellation occurred in 2019 when Pakistan shot down an Indian fighter plane and captured the pilot after he ejected and landed in their territory. Fortunately, the pilot was later released, but a lot of people really almost lost their cool over that incident. A few months later, the ceremony took a whole 2 years off over a fucking sniffle, and tens of thousands of people turned up for its return. Despite being such a macho display of the martial prowess of Elon's top guys, the ceremony has been toned down in recent years. In 2010, India made a bid to make it less aggressive to help aid relations, involving the removal of a gesture involving raised fists and thumbs. The Pakistanis agreed, but, and I quote, "We will only change the fist gesture. No thumb would be shown, and aggressive looks will be replaced with a proper handshake and a smile." To be fair, the curt handshake does go a lot harder than it should. However, this might just be an excuse to save face. Because you see, there are reports that the Indians actually proposed this change because of the over-the-top goose-stepping. You know, where obviously what happened was one guy did it this high and then the next guy did it that high until eventually it got to the point where their legs are practically vertically right up in the fucking air and wrapped around their head. Well, apparently that was being very, very hard on the knees of their H-1B tier super soldiers. Though those reports probably came from Pakistan, who said that they will, and I quote, "continue with foot pressing and leg stretching drill because it is the pride of a soldier and a symbol of his fitness." They also said that the goose stepping never caused any leg injuries and our Pakistani soldiers get fucking mugged. Okay, I might have made that last one up, but Pakistan certainly implied it. But are the Pakistanis really mugging the Indians? I mean, who feels the need to go out of their way to mug Indians? Even if the ceremony wasn't toned down, I'd say that the entire thing is just embarrassingly cringe. It's just two nations of soy jacks ripping off Anglo aesthetics in a vain bid to draw themselves as the Chads. Sabre rattling is compensation. This is not a serious border patrol, but a rehearsed affectation that's even gayer than the haka that was done in Parliament. I mean, seriously, I swear to God, how the fuck did you make the haka look cringe and gay? This entire thing is nothing more than a stupid spectacle that was designed to attract patriotic tourists so that the locals could swindle them out of their grandmother's hard-earned money. And it gets even worse. In 2017, India and Pakistan agreed to develop the Siddiqui joint checkpost between Fazilka and Sulamanke so that they could host this fucking thing there as well. They franchised this. They actually are franchising it out to other parts of the border so that they can make more money. They franchised a fucking military parade. I'm surprised that didn't happen at a different border first. This might just be the strangest show of cooperation that I've ever seen. Yeah, look at us working together so that we can more effectively prove to everyone just how much we hate each other while at the same time fleecing a bunch of tourists out of their money. But, to be fair, as much as I deride this entire thing as ridiculous, it's really fucking funny and I watch it all the time. And it clearly serves a valuable function. Obviously, the two countries will never be friends, but at the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with a little bit of rivalry in moderation. As a Celt, I know that I will always do my utmost best to fuck with the Anglos by absolutely bullying Sargon and Bannerlord. So, I suppose it's good that the Indians and Pakistanis are able to vent some of their hatred in a safe and relatively peaceful way. Say what you will about the method they chose, but it's very reassuring that tensions are cool enough that both sides are just content with making absolute pompous arses of themselves at each other, instead of using those soldiers properly.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody subscribe.